Hello and welcome. I'm Bob Cusack, Editor-in-Chief at The Hill. Thank you for joining us for A More Perfect Union, our second annual multi-day festival where we'll be exploring and celebrating America's best and biggest ideas through the lens of American reinvention. We will bring together political leaders, entrepreneurs, policy innovators, and disruptors to discuss some of the most urgent issues of our time. Today's reinvention theme is exploring emerging technologies from conversational AI and machine learning to the new iteration of the Internet, Web3. Evolving technology trends are changing the game for businesses and communities alike. How did the pandemic speed up digital transformation and innovation? And how are we keeping up with the momentum of ever-growing tech trends? We'll be discussing those topics today and more. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Altria, for its support of this program. We will be bringing you multiple sessions of programming over the next 3 days, and you can watch them all or tune in to specific segments. Go to our website, thehill.com/events, for all the details. And a few housekeeping notes before we begin. You can tweet us at @TheHillEvents using the hashtag TheHillAMPU. And if you experience any trouble with the live stream, which can happen from time to time, please refresh the page. That should be a quick fix. From banking and e-commerce to the travel and hospitality industry, more and more companies are adopting conversational AI to engage with customers. What is the future of conversational AI, and how is it changing the game for business? Joining me now is Andrei Papanchai, CEO and Chief Product Officer at NLX, a tech startup he founded in 2018 that brings conversational AI to companies at scale. Prior to this, he built the natural language understanding platform for American Express. Welcome, Andrei.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Well, as I mentioned, you co-founded NLX a few years ago. Can you tell us what was the impetus? What was the need? What were you thinking that this needs to happen?
Growing up in Romania, entrepreneurship was at my heart. I started building and selling technology ever since I was in 5th grade. So when the opportunity came post my experience at American Express to solve these problems at the larger scale, I jumped right on it. Back in 2015, 2016, I was at American Express and I was tasked with building what you'd colloquially call the conversational AI platform. In a nutshell, as a consumer, is just the chatbot platform, the virtual assistant platform that can augment American Express's operations to better service customers alongside humans. And after that experience at the scale of American Express, and after having done some consulting in the space for other companies, I noticed an opportunity to just do better and help companies be more operationally efficient.
You mentioned you moved from Romania, and now your company is doing great. You're a big success. But how scary was that in the beginning when you came here and set up that technology for American Express?
It was a rather interesting journey. I feel I fit in pretty quick once I got to the US, but I remember being on that flight and I was actually sitting next to a compatriot and he was scaring me of all the different attributes of the United States and be wary of this, be wary of that. All in all, I just embraced it. I immersed myself in the local culture and mentality, and I think I'm living a little bit of my American dream, if you were to call it that.
Oh, definitely. What is the future of conversational AI? When you think about long-term, 5-10 years, where are we going here? Obviously, it's a very successful technology. Where's it going?
I think it's a future where you don't think about the technology itself, but rather interact with all the things around you, whether it's smart devices at home or, and I'm not talking just Amazon Alexa or Google Home, I'm talking fridges, and obviously lots of TVs now have like some form of virtual assistant capability, and switching the mindset for consumers that you don't have to call up or chat with a brand in order to get service, and rather just wherever you are and whatever your most convenient channel of communication is, you can engage with brands and with various different organizations in the most natural way possible, which is conversation.
Andre, can you tell us what industries use this technology, and what industries do you think it really could grow and expand as business leaders see how useful it is?
I think most industries by now dabble with conversational AI in some shape or form. I think as consumers, we've all experienced it through the lens of customer service. And that materializes typically in the form of chatbots or voice assistants. We have some capabilities where, these assistants can sort of transcend channels. We call them multimodal. But it goes all the way to, let's say, applications in the US military where, you can augment the fighter's experience with all kinds of capabilities, all the way to, let's say, space, where, for those of you who maybe didn't think about it, like a spacesuit is a very difficult environment to operate in. And being able to get easier access to certain capabilities of your spacesuit or whatever the mission might be, and be able to just verbalize them as opposed to pressing buttons and moving around is a very powerful thing. So when we think in terms of like the accessibility that conversational AI provides, it's pretty ubiquitous. And I think the pandemic's also exposed that quite a bit. A little bit, I remember being in New York, and after the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, it just showed us how brittle the economy is and how reliant we are on so many different services. And I think technology like conversational AI can help augment that and make it easier for operations, regardless of what they are, to scale better.
If you're making the pitch to use this technology, and I own a business, but I'm reluctant, what's your pitch? I mean, obviously you have, I'm sure, countless other examples of how this has helped businesses, but do you play that card, or how do you convince people who are they're resistant to change?
My pitch would be it's a customer experience play. Don't put it in the bucket of cost savings or replacing people or any of that, because ultimately, just from a technology standpoint, I don't see this technology replacing people anytime soon. And as a matter of fact, people are critical to the operations because they are still able to handle some of the most complex tasks. But at the same time, if you walk backwards from an ideal customer experience, this type of technology can help you achieve that. And oftentimes, the AI systems will go side by side with the human agent to deliver better service. And I think the moment organizations and businesses think through that lens, obviously cost savings and some of those other attributes that sometimes they put first are going to be a benefit of it. But ultimately, when you put your customer first or your user first, only goodness comes out of that. So that would be my strong pitch.
That's a pretty good pitch, I got to tell you. Is it easily implemented?
Absolutely. And I would boil it down to the ease of implementing a website as well. You can spend a couple days building your website and then rolling it out, or you can spend a couple months, and obviously the level of effort that you put in it will dictate the quality of the output. And I think this is where maybe sometimes conversational AI is misunderstood. It's generally just bucketed as like chatbots or voice assistants, and they're just sort of like these one-off applications. Whereas if you think of them in terms of like just a natural evolution of applications, if you think we started with desktop applications, then we went to web applications and to mobile applications, and now we have conversational applications. And just like you'd cater to a website or a mobile app, you kind of need to show the same level of effort to these conversational applications. But it can go very, very quick, or it can take a little bit of time if you want really good quality out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. The White House recently put out a blueprint of AI Bill of Rights. What was your reaction to that document?
I actually was very excited to see that because I think it started the conversation, and it showed probably various different industries that the government is starting to care about it. And I like the different elements that they put forward. I think transparency is a very important aspect of these systems. Being transparent to the users and to make sure that they know they're talking to or that they're interacting with some sort of AI power system. Because oftentimes I've encountered situations where companies try to mask the fact that there might be some AI under the hood or some form of an assistant, and that's not good. It's deceitful, and ultimately customers should know. So like I think it's a wonderful step. I think there's more opportunities to maybe like regulate it a little bit more, and even sort of set a standard, right? Like having the government use more of these AI systems and capabilities and technologies, and sort of set the standard for what that fair system looks like, right? Like they talk about it, but put forward something that actually can be the thing that other organizations look up to.
You recently put out an open letter to the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, on the airline industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that letter and why you released it?
Yeah, I think with the holidays coming up, it's just a constant reminder of how everything was brought to a standstill back in 2020, and how the airline industry was bailed out, and it's impacted all of us. Not obviously, it's impacted the employees and the staff of the airlines, and it's impacted all of us people reliant on travel and going places and whatnot. And since Secretary Pete has been so outspoken and about passenger rights and making sure that everyone benefits and has a right to a good experience, it just felt like the right audience to sort of nudge them and almost like raise our hand a little bit, like we're here, there's other companies like us trying to make this experience better. And ultimately, going back to what I said a little bit earlier, that pursuit of just walking backwards from the ideal customer experience is at our heart and at my company's heart. And ultimately, as travelers, it's always great when you can solve a problem for that's directly applicable to you. So
absolutely. Last question. We're heading into the new year, obviously the holiday season now. What are you looking for forward to, whether it's emerging technologies or where the industry is going in this space in the new year?
I'm seeing some amazing technology being released. I think over the past couple of days, I think everyone's seen this chat GPT-3 thing sort of like pop up on everyone's news feed. So for one, seeing these types of like technological advancements is always very exciting. I think from my company's perspective, we're excited to see that more and more companies are starting to embrace the multimodal nature of just servicing in general, where customers and end users can go and leverage multiple channels at the same time to ultimately get the good experience. So I'm seeing a amazing momentum going into the new year of all kinds of technologies within the AI space just maturing more and more. And as a technologist, that's very exciting to me.
That is good stuff. Andre, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for having me.
And thanks again to Andre Chow, CEO and Chief Product Officer of NLX. My next guest is Rena Shaw, a geopolitical strategist, investor, and entrepreneur. She is also a board member of the Represent Women initiative that helps women achieve gender parity in underrepresented spaces. Most recently, Rena is tying this to the tech and investment space. Welcome, Rena. It's great to see you.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Okay, so Rena, you've got a lot of hats. You've had a lot of hats in your career. You've been a former political strategist, businesswoman, mother of three. How does that all help you in your position today?
Well, if I could weave my story well, I'd have to start back at when I was 19, and I'm not even 40 yet. So I'll tell you, it was a funny thing for me because at 19, I didn't consider myself a businesswoman. I considered myself someone that was good at doing something, and that something was editing resumes, writing, and I turned it into a business. I essentially created a career services company. And what I didn't realize at the time was doing what I love and getting paid for it would take me on a path to selling that business by the time I was in my mid-20s. I didn't realize what the future held for me on the internet. I was always a very online person, but at the age of 24, when I sold my business, it was to a couple I met from Craigslist. So Web 1 was a big impact in my life. I didn't realize that I could sell a business, create one, much less create one from scratch, but sell it. And all thanks to a company like Craigslist.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of the emerging technologies? I just talked to Andre about this, but that you have your eye on going into the new year and the next decade, really, of where we're going.
Well, like I said, with Web 1, I was a very interested party. And now here I am, an elder millennial. So you can assume already that I have been somebody that has Web 2 as very much a part of my life. Also as a mother, Web 2 applications, everything from Etsy to Amazon, anything, you name it, Instacart, it's all a part of my life. And startups for me are very, very natural because as a mother of 3 that are under the age of 5, I'm used to chaos and I have a high threshold for it. So I'm always looking to adapt. And I'm also looking at companies that are doing that well. They're adapting to what's happening. The market forces are, of course, forcing many companies to do the right thing in some cases. But of course, the pandemic era has had a real impact on how women who are, again, using technology to aid their daily lives, it has really created an opening for companies to come and speak directly to us. So if you ask me what gets me most excited in the morning, it's to see these founders that are out there who are quietly been operating for the past 4 years now see the fruits of their labor. And these are women often who come from underrepresented communities. I'm talking Black and brown women, even rural women. What happened in Web 2 is painting the picture for what could be really successful in Web 3. The emerging technologies I'm most excited about is definitely artificial intelligence. Machine learning is going to make our lives even better than we thought. So when I look at companies that are being founded by these underrepresented founders, I'm considering companies in healthcare. Those are the companies I'm adding to my portfolio right now, Bob. And I think it would be wise of more people to do so because coming out of the pandemic era restrictions, we're realizing how important health is. And when we have technology at our fingertips, whether it's through a watch or a wearable like I wear every day, tracking my steps, tracking my sleep, or just my phone, which it seems like I'm doing everything through these days, I know that my health is coming to be the center of everything. So the companies that are speaking to me about my health, even though they're not particularly healthcare centric, I'm really, really turned on by those. And I'm finding them to be the ones that are courting unique investments, whether they be from the West Coast or the East Coast, or even globally.
What you've had a lot of experience with startups. What's your kind of advice to people? It's always scary starting a startup. It's stressful, and it takes, as you alluded to before, it takes a little time for the payoff. Sometimes more than a little time for the payoff. What's your advice to people who are thinking about it but are a little anxious?
Like I mentioned earlier, I jumped into the startup world by creating one, but then I jumped out by going into politics and doing what I had studied and learned. I love the American presidency, and that drew me to Capitol Hill, actually, not to the executive branch. I spent time on Capitol Hill serving 2 members of the U.S. House of Representatives and really got a feel for how Congress works and doesn't work. I understood what regulations can do to businesses, and I think that was my greatest takeaway. And when I left Capitol Hill, I went on to found my own small business. I created a political consulting practice, but it quickly became apparent to me as this young strategist in Washington that I wasn't going to make all my money through politics. I realized that helping startups navigate the complexities of Washington was something that I could also offer, and I was really drawn to that. It's really true when people talk about how crushing the overburdensome regulation coming out of Washington and out of state houses across the country can be to businesses. It's why 90% of startups also fail. Not just because they're leadership, not just because of money, but
right.
It's because there's an environment out there that has made it tough for them to succeed. And that's a staggering statistic for a lot of people. Now, look, I'm not trying to blame everything on the government because I'm very much a lover of government. And when government does good and functions well, I think it's the best thing because it's serving the needs of an American founder well is what we could do in this free and open, just society. And I think that's why so many people are drawn to this country is because they can create a startup here literally from scratch while getting help from the federal government. But what what I'm most concerned about, Bob, as we move towards another presidential election is how our candidates talk about innovation and creation for today's founder. Earlier, I alluded to a founder that has probably been sitting on their idea and maybe quietly even toiling at it for 4 to 5 years now because of the slowdown of the pandemic era. We saw people really walk away from passion projects, but we also saw some other people draw in unique investments and enter new audiences while also bringing in new market share. I think that all can't be discounted by today's lawmakers and candidates. These people have to be able to speak to the new creator in America, and they've got to be able to take heed of what's gone well in Web 2. We've got to see who the losers and the winners have been. And frankly, Bob, one thing I'm most concerned about and why I put so much of my attention on women-led efforts is because women simply are not at the table enough when it comes to talking about the future of Web3 and other emerging technologies that will be encapsulated in Web3.
I wanted you to expand a little bit. When you talk to policymakers, based upon your experience in startups and red tape and Washington rules, what? And I know there's a lot, there's state rules, as you mentioned, but what's your advice? I mean, obviously, don't get in our way, but specifically, what do you think that regulators and Congress and the White House and the administration need to know about the difficulty of starting new businesses?
Well, it's that exact word right there, the difficulty. It's already so difficult to go out and talk about what's important to you and make somebody else be as excited as you are about what it is you've created, whether it's a service offering like I had created many years back or a product. I think in today's era, you can really do a hybrid of things, but how to get people to know your idea and love it just as much as you is always going to be a challenge. So the other forces that can be curbing innovation are simply the burdensome regulations that some of our agencies put on creators. So I think for policymakers, how they can best inform themselves is a prescription that I think we ought to really be talking about more in Washington. And that's a really highly paid innovation or tech fellow that sits in the halls of Congress and talks to some of these committees or sits in some of these personal offices. Now, I say highly paid because right now, pounding the pavement in Washington are a great many tech lobbyists. That is a challenge. There's an unfair balance out there. Right now, the average person, the average American consumer, the people's voice, so to speak, isn't really well equipped on Capitol Hill. That voice is the people who are informing our lawmakers are largely lobbyists, so special interests. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So I think creating this program of maybe what could be akin to a presidential leadership fellowship, but a tech fellowship in Congress could really help lawmakers understand some of these complexities that are, some of these founders are facing, but also helping them understand how to adapt new technologies and really weave those into some of these laws that they're creating from scratch. Because what they're having to do is meet the moment. And it's no secret, Bob, that right now we've got too many people in Congress that are not really speaking to Gen Z or millennials. So that's another issue, is that those people aren't the people utilizing the technologies that are out there that millennials like I'm using. They're not people who've gone to college with an email address like I did. And so therefore, they're already kind of behind the learning curve. It's going to be greater for them. And I think these tech innovation fellows, who are, again, highly paid, in order to sort of balance the environment against tech lobbyists, that could really change the game in Washington.
You mentioned gender equality, and I want to talk about that and diversity. Where are we going? Are you seeing progress? Obviously, in a number of industries, especially in Washington and in Congress, you're seeing a lot of white men. Are we seeing a transformation in this space? And how do you how do you do it? How do you get more women involved? How do you convince them this is a great opportunity for you?
You get them involved by creating their own clubs. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm really encouraged by groups like, there are Women of Web3 out there. So many groups. You could just head up on Twitter and jump into a space any night of the week, frankly, because there are women out there creating NFTs and, again, non-fungible tokens. And you have people that have already got what would be considered solid startups in the Web3 space. It's a question of who's listening and who is also at their table. And it's not many men. So the Women's clubs remain the women's clubs, and the old boys clubs, as they've been referred to, remain those old boys clubs. Until they merge and find a way to coexist, then we can't see the progress we want to see in places like New York or Los Angeles, much less here in Washington, D.C., where we have the regulators who are, like I mentioned earlier, just really behind the games because of things out of their control. So when we talk about power centers such as finance, we know that less than 20% of women are holders of decentralized currencies. And that's a real big problem. Now, I know right now in the news, there's been a lot of crypto headlines. What I would say to women is to go online in any community that you feel comfortable in. For me, it's Twitter. And also LinkedIn is another community I'm becoming more comfortable in. Find that community for yourself, and then also find like-minded creators. And again, these may be people that will create with you or people that will take you into another community that you can create it. There's also a lot of observers in the space, people who want to be active investors at some point. For me, investing in Web2 and creating a robust portfolio of women-led companies was really important to me. But I was also fortunate in that I've been around startups and been in the founder space for a very long time. It's not hard for today's American women to do that when these communities are at her fingertips. And then I also say, get excited about some new apps that are out there that are maybe starting. Reach out to their founders. For example, just recently, I talked to one of the founders of MentorCam. It's a great startup where you can get in touch with people that are building out in Silicon Valley, and they'll give you business advice for a nominal fee, or you can join their membership program. I've also got my speech coach in a pocket, and it's an app called Orai, and they're doing it with artificial intelligence. So these are just two apps that I've mentioned that I love using, and they're small enough where you can reach out to their founding team and get excited and get involved and kind of grow with them. So I would really implore women to take much of the same strategy. Don't be afraid to enter a space just because there's nobody else that looks like you in it. Don't be afraid to walk into any new space as well. For example, real estate is something I'm becoming more interested in now too. And I'm willing to get into circles that I may not have been in before, simply by forging new connections.
Well, Rena, that's great advice. You've got a lot of interests. You got a lot of hats on. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure.
Thanks again to Rena Shaw. It's now time for the sponsor perspective of our program. Jennifer Gladstone is joined by Paige Magnus, Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at Altria.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gladstone, and welcome to our discussion on business transformation. Today, we've been hearing about America's best big ideas through the lens of American reinvention. And now we will look at how one of the world's largest tobacco companies is moving beyond smoking. As more and more U.S. adult smokers seek an alternative to cigarettes, there's an opportunity for companies like Altria to make major strides in how they do business. Altria sees business transformation as an opportunity to drive its business forward through technological innovation and to invest in people company-wide who are the catalysts of change. Joining us to discuss this topic is Paige Magnus, Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for Altria Client Services. Hi, Paige. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's jump right into things. What does business transformation mean at Altria, and how does that translate to building innovation capabilities?
You know, the tobacco industry is changing, and for the better. The future of our industry really is about innovation, harm reduction, and informed consumer choice. So at Altria, we're focusing our tremendous resources and our very talented people on reducing the risk of tobacco products while expanding choices for adult consumers. And that's really important because today over 20 million U.S. adult smokers are seeking less harmful alternatives to cigarettes. So it's a pivotal moment with adult smoker demand for non-combustible alternatives, innovation, and an appropriate regulatory framework. We really have an opportunity to transform Altria and our industry. And so our vision is to responsibly lead the transition of adult smokers to a smoke-free future. We're moving beyond smoking. And of course, for those adult tobacco consumers who want to quit, we offer access to a breadth of information from experts on how to do so successfully.
What support is needed to make tobacco harm reduction a success?
Several things, I think. First, collaboration. You know, successful harm reduction will require the involvement of many stakeholders, and that's why leaning into engagement and partnership is critical for us. Our scientists, for example, share their findings openly and dialogue with others across the scientific and public health communities about the science behind harm reduction. Second, we need better information. Research shows that we need to help correct misperceptions about nicotine and the relative risks of different products to encourage adult smoker transition to smoke-free products. Third, continued innovation. I'm really proud of the groundwork that we're laying in using science to develop a pipeline of smoke-free products that we believe can successfully transition adult smokers and achieve FDA authorization. We're listening to our consumers to better understand and empathize with their journey and the motivators and the barriers that they face. And finally, remaining vigilant that harm reduction must be an off-ramp for adult smokers and not an on-ramp for underage tobacco use.
Can you talk about emerging technologies and what will be the impact on your industry and Altria?
Technology and innovation is the way forward for harm reduction. So we're investing in science to arrive at the right insights, to guide product development, and to generate the data necessary to demonstrate the risk reduction potential of these products. Our scientists, our engineers, product developers, and consumer researchers are all working together to create unique intellectual property and a robust pipeline of innovative smoke-free products. And we're combining our deep knowledge of adult smokers with our data analytics and our consumer behavioral understanding to better get at what would motivate and ultimately support the transition of a smoker to a smoke-free product.
How is Altria leadership driving transformation, and how are employees making transformation a reality?
Disruption is really a catalyst for change, and we're leaning into that change. Our culture has evolved very rapidly to be one of trust and empowerment, initiative, and constant learning. And there's just really a tremendous energy here behind the opportunity to transform our company and to lead our industry, so that energy fuels ideas and really a desire to work differently.
Well, Paige, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Altria for their support of this program. It's hard to avoid talking crypto when we talk about emerging technologies. The terms Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain have been trending in recent years, especially these past few weeks. What is the future of crypto, and how will it continue to fit into our overall economic landscape? Joining me to discuss this and more is Emily Landon, CEO of the Crypto Recruiters, a woman-owned crypto, Web3, and blockchain recruiting firm that helps bring people to the industry. I spoke with Emily just a short while ago. Here's our conversation. Emily, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Well, let's start off talking about your company, the Crypto Recruiter. What is it? What are its goals? And what gaps does it look to fill in the industry?
The Crypto Recruiters, we're a crypto-specific recruiting firm. We also deal with blockchain Web3 and anything Web3. Our goals are to help as many people as we can join the crypto space. We've helped over 200 people enter the space since January 2020, and we're excited to help many more.
How do you get people in the space?
Yes, so we have great conversations with them, and we do a lot of networking with hiring managers. So by speaking with hiring managers, really understanding what they're looking for, we're able to go out and find them talent. Hiring managers are often looking for talent that has Web3 experience, so we're constantly encouraging people to volunteer at Web3 projects to get that experience.
As you know, Emily, crypto has been in the news with the FTX collapse. What's your kind of view of it, and what are you telling people and colleagues as this is front page news and there's a lot of nervousness out there? I know there have been other issues in the past, but kind of get your thoughts on what's been going on to this really remarkable story.
It really is. Crypto's not going anywhere, and it's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. We are seeing big brands like Coca-Cola just launched an NFT campaign. We have other brands that are really getting into the space. They may not be talking about it, but I think everybody is exploring blockchain. Crypto specifically, crypto may not be around in the future. I'm not 100% sold, but the technology that is blockchain, that's going to be here forever.
And as far as investors and that kind of thing, I saw you tweeted out, buy the dip. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. So buying the dip means the lower a crypto drops, you get to buy it at a lower price. So anytime crypto is dropping down and down and down, you want to buy. So that way, when it goes back up, you've got a really healthy portfolio. So buy the dip.
So this is such a unique industry, and I'll get into kind of the Washington angle in a little bit. But what has surprised you with the growth of the industry? It's so unique, and where do you think it's going to be in a few years? I know there's a lot of uncertainty, but where do you think it's headed?
I think what's really intrigued me is like how many people got into this space and so quickly. We had over 40,000 applications this year alone for crypto jobs. I think that this industry it's going to take over, honestly. Every company is exploring how to use blockchain, and I think it's going to be a really important aspect to the ecosystem and the economy.
What kind of talent are you looking for? And, as far as the age of people getting in, does it vary or is it skew a little younger?
Yeah. So a crypto company, a Web3 company is just like any other company. They need HR, they need marketing, they need finance. So we're looking for a variety of different roles. I would say that developers are the most requested right now. Overall talent, I mean, we're looking for people that have a passion for crypto, right? Not everybody has experience in the space, but passion pushes us forward. So if you're knowledgeable about the space and you're passionate about it, you're more likely to get the position. Age-wise, it does skew to the less tenured candidates, but I think these companies, as they're formalizing or realizing they really need tenure talent to come in and formalize everything, to bring it all together. So I would say previously, yes, there was a skew towards the younger generation, but now they're seeing that the older generation brings a lot of value.
What's the role, Emily, in your view on regulators, the U.S. government in this space? That lawmakers are kind of grappling and struggling to, number one, figure it out, and also doing some oversight. And we're going to see more of that certainly going forward in the new Congress. What do you think should be their role?
I definitely think they should be involved. There's a lot of bad actors in crypto, and I think that can be mitigated by regulation. So I think it's important. I think regulation is really important.
What about, how do you deal with the bad actors? There's bad actors everywhere, right? And we just talked a little bit about FTX, but how do you deal with them? And also then, if you're able to deal with them, make the case, yes, that this is the exception. This is not the rule.
Yeah. So when it comes to candidates dealing with bad actors, we're definitely looking at previous companies that people have worked at, right, to see if any of them were rugged. We're also really evaluating their personality very heavily. So we have different personality assessments that will help us determine if a candidate is being honest or not. And a lot of this comes with experience. We're also looking at different platforms like GitHub to verify their coding. There are definitely scams going on in the crypto space when it comes to employment. So there are candidates that are accepting a job and then not quitting their last job. And I think that gets down to really vetting out the candidate and their soft skills. By meeting with a candidate multiple times, you're really going to be able to make sure that story stays the same. So yeah.
What about ensuring diversity in the industry? Certainly that's affected all industries, including journalism. How do you handle and make sure that you have a diverse group of talent?
Absolutely. So how do you make sure you have a diverse group of talent? I think that just starts with recruiting the right people, right? So making sure that not all of your team are the same gender or the same race, and really giving opportunities to those that may not have, excelled in Web3 already, which is where it gets down to getting people a chance. Diversity is a very hot topic in crypto right now. In fact, everybody is looking to add diversity to their team, whether that be minorities or women especially. I mean, women in Web3 is a huge movement that's happening. So I think for companies, they really need to give people that don't have Web3 experience but have a passion for it a chance.
Has there been a struggle? The unemployment level is relatively low compared to other years. Obviously, the economy has its own issues, but unemployment is not the issue. Has that been a problem in finding talent?
Actually, no. The more talent that's available is better, right? So we get to meet all of these really fantastic people. Now it gets down to, we have a plethora of talent for our managers, and they get to select the best ones that they would like to interview. So due to all the layoffs, there's been an immense amount and an influx of talent available, which has been fabulous for us.
Mm-hmm. And going forward, as far as with the Congress, and we've seen this with either hearings on social media, where lawmakers who are certainly a little older, they don't quite get it. How do you describe the industry to people who are not industry experts or not even Washington insiders to say, this is what I do and this is what you need to know about it?
Yeah, great question. So this is a hard one for me to answer, because if someone's not passionate about crypto, it's not my job to talk them into it. I want someone to, if someone wants a crypto job, they have to be passionate about it in order to get that job, because companies, they don't have time to ramp people up on their crypto knowledge, let's call it. So when I'm explaining to someone what I do, I explain that I'm working in digital currencies, and they often ask what that is. I work in digital currencies and I help people find their dream jobs. I think that a lot of people, will classify this industry as, in a negative way. And I think that that's completely incorrect. There's always going to be a bad actor. There's always going to be a bad apple in the bunch, but you need to really meet some of these people. I mean, Web3 is filled with some of the kindest, most honest, just wonderful, good human beings. And I think a lot of that is skipped over, especially in the news. So I really try to educate them on how wonderful the people are, how kind everybody is, how everybody's willing to help and network, which is all very true. We grew a very large following on LinkedIn just by providing value to people. And I think that's something that Web3 is really passionate about, is providing value to the community.
Last question, what made you interested in this space? What got you like, wow, this is kind of intriguing, and I imagine that your situation is similar to others where they're like, what is this? And the more you learn about it, the more interesting it is.
Exactly. So I recruited for financial services for 3 years prior. And financial services recruiting can be tough. People aren't always the nicest. And my fiance actually got a job in Web3. His company needed some help recruiting. So I grew them from 35 to 114 employees and was just in love with the people. At first, it started off as a favor. And then I was like, you know what? This is amazing. These people are great to work with. Nobody's crabby on the phone. Everybody wants to talk to me. I mean, it was just an awesome industry to get involved with because of the people and the technology. So this may sound a little morbid, but I want to experience as much of blockchain as I can in my lifetime. It kills me that I won't be around when the last Bitcoin is mined. So I want to see this grow as much as it can. And by helping people get jobs in the space, that's how I'm helping push it forward.
Very exciting field. Emily, thanks for your input. I've learned a fair amount today.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks again to Emily Landon, CEO of the Crypto Recruiters. And that brings us to the end of our first segment of A More Perfect Union. Please join us back here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, for our next segment, Reinventing the American Economy. We'll be discussing how technology is encouraging business growth, the future disruptors of digital commerce, and much more. See you back here tomorrow at 1.